Well, hello and welcome to Brand X Reviews. This is the 9th part now, I believe, in a series of reviews that I've done on the Marvel Cinematic Universe tie-in graphic novels. And in this one I'm going to be looking at the Guardians of the Galaxy official tie-in. Now, if you've seen the other reviews, you probably know what that is, but just in case you haven't, I'll just quickly explain what these are. Marvel obviously have been doing films since 2008 with Iron Man 1. I mean, that's Marvel Studios doing their own films, not counting the licensed franchises like Spider-Man, which is owned by Sony, and X-Men, which is owned by 20th Century Fox. I'm talking about the films that all tie in with the Avengers, so the Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man. There's going to be more as well as this expands. So the films that they've done, there's a series of graphic novels that tie in with those films. They're set in canon with those films to a certain degree. Because obviously comics have films that are based on them, but the comics that came out in the 1960s aren't canon with the films. The films are just based on the comics, whereas these are actually set in continuity with the films. So I'll just very quickly just recap the ones that we've done so far. There was the Iron Man tie-in that came out in 2008. It's called I Am Iron Man. Each one of these, I've done a video on each one individually, so if you want to check out brandxreviews.com you can see those. Now there's one with Iron Man 2 as well that tied in with that film. There was one that tied in with Captain America that was called First Vengeance, tied in with the first Captain America film from 2011. Then there was an Avengers Prelude. At this point they started calling them Preludes, and you started to see this seal here which says Marvel Cinematic Universe official tie-in. So you tend to see that from this point on all these. So that was one that tied in with the Avengers. There was a second one that tied in with the Avengers about the Black Widow, so again Prelude. So they tend to be set before the film, or kind of parallel in some cases. It's Thor the Dark World, so that came out in 2013. There was also, actually the next one was Iron Man 3, then it was Thor the Dark World. And then after that, so in 2014, that was earlier this year, we saw the Winter Soldier Prelude as well. Now the problem that I had with the Winter Soldier Prelude was there's only a small amount of this that actually tied in with the film. It was kind of buffed up with other stories from just the comics that aren't in continuity with the films, because the actual Prelude itself was like only about 14 pages long. So they just, to make a book, they just kind of, like I say, buffed it up. Which kind of drives me nuts that they did that, but so be it. Now, the one that I'm going to review now anyway, just kind of, now that I've caught up, Guardians of the Galaxy. With this one, there is a similar thing to what they did with the Captain America one. There's a lot of stuff in here from the 60s and 70s and so on that they've kind of just thrown in there again, like I say, just to buff it up. But there is a lot more than just 14 pages worth of the Prelude, so the story that ties in with the film that is to be released in August. So that's good, that's a good thing. That's what we wanted. I would say, unfortunately, it is only less than half, to be honest, of what you get with this. It's not a very big graphic novel, as you can see from the size of it. Only less than half is actually the Prelude. The rest of it is all the stuff that they're just kind of thrown out, which is interesting, don't get me wrong. It's nice to see other stories that kind of have inspired the film. If you haven't seen these elsewhere. Problem is I have seen stuff like this and own stuff like this in other collections, so from my point of view it would have been nice to have seen more, but if that's all they've done, that's all they've done, fair enough, that's fine. Because what is in here, there's 3 stories basically that tie in with the film, that are set in continuity with the film, and I'll show you what they are. Well, there's like a 2-parter. It's just Guardians of the Galaxy Prelude number 1 and number 2, but they are separate stories basically, and I'll just kind of go through them. The first story is about this character called Nebula, which I think is Thanos' daughter. I'm just going to assume you know who Thanos is. He's like the big bad guy of the films, like a really tough bad guy in Marvel Comics. But I'll assume you know the background to that anyway. As you know, he's going to be in more films coming out We briefly saw him in the end of the Avengers, but I believe that Thanos is in Guardians of the Galaxy in some capacity. I don't think he's in it much, but in here, this first story is about Nebula and how she was basically being trained as an assassin to do jobs for Thanos. And she's basically, the story starts out, she's kind of falling down to this planet. That's literally how it starts. She's falling onto a planet called Praxeus 4. And she has like a flashback to her upbringings, being trained as an assassin basically. And she's had a number of failures. Everything she's ever done, she's failed on. And each time she fails, she gets injured. As you can see here, this is when she was a bit younger, and she was on a mission, a training mission. She failed, and basically it resulted in her getting these bionic implants put into. So if you've seen the Nebula character, you can see she's got all those like metal bits on her and stuff. So basically it shows that she's on this mission to retrieve this thing called the Orb at this point in it. So she's basically saying our master, that's Thanos, needs the Orb. Now I believe the Orb is something that is in Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't really explain what it is here, but it's some kind of artifact similar to the Tesseract that we've seen in the other Marvel films. Now I know the Orb is in the trailer. I've seen the Orb in the trailer. It's just a ball basically.
Drop it now!
Yeah, hey, cool man, no problem.
Black kind of ball. It's some kind of powerful object. Like I say, I don't know exactly what it is. So she's on a mission to retrieve this. And while she's on this mission, it shows you like many flashbacks to other missions she's had, and she's failed, and Thanos has kind of saved her life so that she can kind of carry on. And each time something's happened, she's become she's been rebuilt basically with these bionic implants. So again, we see Thanos here, which is quite interesting because we haven't really seen much of Thanos in the films or in the graphic novels that tie in with the film. So you kind of a bit of imagination there as to what he might look like in an upcoming film if we do get to see him properly. It goes back to the mission. So she suddenly finds herself in a bit of trouble. She gets fired upon by these cannons. Then it cuts back to another flashback. It shows Nebula here with another character called Gamora, which is the one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, the female character, one's all green. And so you can see that there. And again, she's on a mission and kind of fails. Well, ends up getting injured again. So Thanos kind of rebuilds her again, giving her more implants. So each time she does a mission, she gets injured. More and more implants after it. Kind of like Darth Vader, basically. Cuts back to the actual mission that she's going on to retrieve the Orb. You can see just general action going on. Then there's another flashback to her being kind of trained again. So it basically shows she gets kind of captured, and while she's trying to get this orb, and she gets captured in this kind of like laser net thing. She's all tangled in it. It's got these like laser thorns, barbs kind of thing. She's kind of caught up in that. At which point Nebula busts in and just basically does the mission for her, as you can see there. And Nebula then gets on the radio to Thanos and says, well, she didn't acquire the orb, she's failed, do you want me to leave her here? Thanos says, yeah, leave her. If she can survive it, then she'll get stronger, you know, we'll just kind of fix her up again and she'll get stronger. If she dies kind of thing. So she gets left there and cuts off her arm to get out of it. So again, more injuries, comes out of it with another kind of implant kind of thing, well, a whole arm, a bit like the Winter Soldier basically. And just basically that's it. That's kind of her character. It just kind of ends there. So not a terribly important story, but it just kind of gives you a bit of a background as to who she is and why she's all got all these scars and things. Well, all these implants going on. So that was story one. Anyway, story number two is all about Groot and Rocket Raccoon. So you got this place called the Hub. Anyway, it's like a space station, and Groot and Rocket Raccoon. First time we see them, they're getting into like a gunfight in the middle of this bar, and then it kind of rewinds a bit and says, "I'll show you how we got to this point in the story," because it kind of goes back and it picks up later on. So basically it kind of runs down through who these characters are and what they're all about, basically. Because there's still a lot of mystery surrounding these characters unless you're a hardcore Marvel Comics fan. So it just basically says about Rocket Raccoon is basically a weapons specialist, tactician, deadly shot. So you can kind of see there what he's like. And then you've got Groot, indigenous life form of Planet X, sentient, arboriform, monosyllabic, virtually indestructible big hitter. So he's a bit of a badass, basically. And all he ever says is, "I am Groot." That's all he ever says, because his name is Groot. That's pretty much all he ever says. In fact, first time we see him in the thing, he's saying it there as well. It's kind of like an ongoing joke throughout this. I'm pretty sure it's going to continue in the film as well. In fact, he says it in the trailer, so I know that. So you've got these this fight that's going on, and basically it cuts back to where the story's going to begin, and it's with Rocket Raccoon and Groot. They're kind of docking. They're flat broke and looking for a job, basically, looking for someone that's going to give them some money. So they bump into this guy called, what's he called? Zaid Scraggett. That's kind of a weird name. Is this kind of tentacle-looking guy here. And he basically offers him a job, says, "I need you to import something for me, past security. There'll be a lot of money in it for you." So basically they're running out of money, so they say, "Yeah, that's fine, we'll do it." It's a very dangerous job, and he kind of goes through the dangers and what they have to do to get this thing in that we don't know what it is. It's a mystery. It's like a consignment of something, but we don't know what it is. So it kind of cuts to them breaking in to get this, to retrieve this item, which they're going to do to get some money. Rocket Raccoon goes into this place and it sets off these gas things that knock all the security guys out, which you can see there. Then there's a bit of a gunfight. Groot, there again saying, "I am Groot," gets this thing out of there, which is what they're trying to import, which they're trying to smuggle into the place for this Scraggett character that's paying them. Rocket Raccoon kind of escapes, but he kind of accidentally blasts himself out of this rocket pack out of this window into space, and what happens is he's about to die, and then Groot reaches out of the window and grabs him, saves his life, kind of pulls him back in, but his arm kind of breaks off a little bit. But it's okay, because a bit of fertiliser in this bar, if he can get some fertiliser, if he can drink that, that'll kind of bring him back, because he's a tree basically, so he can rebuild himself. So that's why they go to this bar, and then they go to this Scraggett character who wants this thing that they've smuggled in this box. And then he opens it. It's basically these kind of like little snail alien guys that are inside it. And the Scraggett character says, "Yeah, I wanted to get these out because how does he put it? He says, Mr. Scraggett's having his bathroom remodelled, and the shells on these babies will make the perfect tiling to match the colour scheme." So basically these alien snail things say, "Right, we're not having any of that, bollocks to that." Shouts out to Rocket Raccoon and Groot, "If you save me from this, I'll pretty much double what they have paid you." So it takes Rocket Raccoon and Groot about a second to think about it, and then so basically they double cross this Scraggett character and rescue these little snail guys. So you can kind of see where this is going. A big bar fight erupts, and that basically takes you back to where the beginning of the story was, with them getting into a bar fight. So it's a pretty good story basically. And then they just kind of fly off, and then that's the end of the story. So I'm pretty sure that's going to pick up in the actual film that comes out in August. Now the third story is just called Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Dangerous Prey, and this is all about Gamora, sorry. So this is the character that you'll have seen in the trailers anyway. She's one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and she was the other female character in the first story, appearing alongside Nebula. That's why I got the names confused. So basically, this story starts out anyway, where if you've seen Thor: The Dark World, you'll have seen the post-credit scene with the Collector. So it pretty much takes us to that point in the story. So we get to see these characters, Heimdall and Lady Sif, meeting with the Collector. They give him the ether. You'll have seen that scene in the film, but it kind of shows you what happens straight after that. The Collector then gets notification that there is an incoming transmission from your eyes on the ground, whatever that means. But it's basically to do with Gamora. So it then cuts to this place, a cold, dead world in the coldest reaches of the galaxy. And this is kind of like a black market area where there's a lot of stuff going on. I kind of zip through all this. There's a casino and everything. Gamora's kind of there. It kind of reminds me of the scene in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome when he first goes into the place. Into the marketplace. It's kind of like that. She's kind of a similar character to him in some ways. Kind of a badass. And you can see she's kind of wreaking havoc. I like the artwork in this as well. It's a lot better than the previous two stories that I've just kind of gone through. So then she meets up with the Collector, but the Collector is just a hologram because he was being very cautious, basically knowing what she's like. And he basically says, well, this orb thing, so again, it's the orb that was mentioned before. He wants her to retrieve this thing because he can keep it safe in his vault, and he's happy to do that. It's kind of, that's what's in it for everybody. He'll keep everybody safe by keeping it in his vault, and he is of course a collector, so he wants stuff like that. And of course we know he's got an agenda as well, based on that scene that we saw in the end of Thor: The Dark World. He's collecting these things for a reason. I dare say it's to put these things together, to put the Infinity Gauntlet together. Which is why I'm wearing my Infinity Gauntlet pendant for this review. Bit sad, I know, but anyway. So yeah, basically that's pretty much all there is to it. He's basically saying that he wants this thing. The stakes are high, and I cannot be the only one eager to possess the orb. So basically, he knows that there are other people out there after it. And then on the next page, it kind of shows you kind of like a splash page, I guess, with some of the other characters which we're going to see in Guardians of the Galaxy. So we know that that's pretty much what the film's going to be about. I mean, you can tell that from just watching the trailer anyway. You can also see Thanos there as well, so we know he's after this thing too. So exactly how it works, I don't know how it's all going to tie together, but it'll be interesting to see when this film comes out. That's all there is basically to it. The rest of this thing, we've got the I think it was number 55 from Iron Man number 55, which we first saw Thanos in. So it's got a lot of stories basically like that kind of tie in. In fact, I've just turned to the exact page where we first saw Thanos there. But I've got these in other collections. There's a few other things too. There's a thing about Adam Warlock as well. His character, I know he was one that, I think he defeated Thanos the first time round back in the 70s, before they brought him back in the 90s. There's a story with Rocket Raccoon pretty much versus the Hulk as well, but again, it's an old story. I'll just kind of not even bother going through those. And then we've got Tales to Astonish with Groot, which I think was from the 50s, to be honest. I think that was, from 1959, I think. I could be wrong. That'll be the first, presumably the first ever issue of Groot. I haven't really researched this side of it. I was just kind of going to show you the Prelude stuff. To be honest, this just came in the post today. I wanted to get this review out, so I haven't fully read the other bits, but I've read the actual Prelude stories, just so that I could tell you what's in it and recommend it, basically. These are the stories, they've been out there for a long time, so like I say, I'm just going to avoid those. There is also another thing, the Guardians of the Galaxy, from recent years, which you can buy, and this is basically part 1, and when you get to the end of part 1 it says to be continued in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 Cosmic Avengers. So it's basically to get you to buy a different graphic novel. So it's kind of lame is that they do that. And again, like I said, they've just done it to buff this thing up so that it's thicker than it would be otherwise, justify you buying it, but it's still worth buying anyway. If you're into the films, if you want to know more about the characters, if you want to have an expanded look at the films, I would recommend getting these. They are very good. And so this is the latest one anyway. I'm assuming they're going to carry on doing these. This is the 9th one they've done out of the 10 films. This will be the 10th film. So very interesting anyway. So the film's out in August, so if you check back at brandxreviews.com, we'll of course be reviewing that. And I don't know what to expect. It does look like a very weird one, very kind of different to the Earth-based ones they've done so far. But you know, this is Marvel. It's great that they're expanding the cinematic universe into more sort of a galactic thing, because that's what they do in the comics basically. So it's good that it's not just restricted to Earth-based characters like Iron Man and Captain America. It's really good to see it all tying together as well. That's the other great thing. I really wonder how far these films are going to go. I heard recently that they've actually projected these kind of in the next 10 years basically. They've got it all mapped out where they're going to go, so that's, I'd love to actually see that timeline, like where it's going to go. I'd love to kind of know where it's going, but we don't really know. I mean, if these films start to kind of flop at the box office, then I guess they're going to have to cut it short, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. They've all been very successful. I know some of the films haven't been as good as some of the others, particularly Phase 2. I think some people didn't like some of those films as much, like Iron Man 3 specifically was one that, although it did very well, there were a lot of people that didn't like it. I did personally, I liked it, but I can see where people are coming from, especially with Disney being involved now as well. That's not necessarily a good thing for the franchise, but we will see anyway. And like I say, we'll be reviewing these at brandxreviews.com, so if you check back on the website, there's plenty more to go through. So we will see you next time, and like I said, check out our review in August when the film Guardians of the Galaxy gets released. Thank you very much for watching.